Welcome to Escape the System, the channel for all entrepreneurs, artists and coaches looking to live successful, self-determined lives. I'm Joe Barnes, author, speaker and coach, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the 3 reasons why you should listen to Andrew Tate. So before I get into the 3 reasons why you should listen to Andrew Tate, I just want to give you a little bit of a backstory into this video. About 6 months ago, I wrote a blog post for my website, escapethesystemnow.com, called The 3 Reasons Why You Should Not Listen to Andrew Tate. I'll leave a link in the description below if any of you want to read that. Now at the time, this blog post was quite well received, but it was also quite divisive. There were some people that really enjoyed it and thought I made intelligent, reasoned points, but the Andrew Tate fans didn't like what I had to say. They called me a brokey and asked me what colour my Bugatti was. So I went away from that experience thinking to myself, maybe I haven't quite been fair to Andrew Tate. After all, there were plenty of points that he makes that I found myself agreeing with. So with that in mind, I thought I'd revisit his points of view and what he has to say and explore 3 reasons why I think you should listen to him. The format for this video is going to be video clips taken from YouTube of Andrew Tate either speaking or giving interviews. The 3 subjects I've chosen to explore are his views on marriage, depression, and also general compliance within society. The first one we're going to start with is Andrew Tate's views on marriage. Here we go.
In chess, you look at every move from a risk reward. The risk reward on marriage is absolutely detrimental to men. I understand men do it because women nag for it. And that's the only reason men do it. You don't enjoy the day. You don't want to do the planning. You don't give a fuck. You don't give a shit. Now you're fucked. Now she'll take half your shit. What do you gain? Pussy? You already had the pussy. Like there's nothing to gain, right? But I get it. The woman really wants to be married, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I think that marriage is one of the tools that the Western world uses to enslave men. I think that when I refuse to get married, it's not because I don't love a female and can't love a female. I think it's because I hate governments. And I'll sit there and say, look, I love you with all my heart, but I don't see why the government should have anything to do with your pussy and my dick. I don't trust them. I don't like them. Look what they did with COVID. Why the fuck do I want them involved in our relationship? If we break up, can't we just break up amicably? I'll give you some money for the kid, whatever. You still like me. I still like you. Why do we need a divorce? Why do we need lawyers? Why do we need to make lawyers rich? Like, why are we involving all these people?
Now, I think good on Andrew Tate for challenging marriage. It doesn't get challenged enough in society. We all get sold this romantic notion that the day we get married is going to be the best day of our lives and that we can't actually be fully actualized people and live happy, normal lives unless we're married. There's so much pressure in society on us to get married. And here's Andrew Tate saying, well, hold on a second, this might actually be detrimental to your life. And the statistics actually back this up. Divorce rates are at around 50 to 40%. And of those people whose marriages actually survive, how many do you think are in happy relationships? I've recently been reading the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. This is sold well over 15 million copies. And the author, John Gray, a relationship expert, had this to say. Each year, millions of couples join together in love and then painfully separate because they have lost that loving feeling. From those who are able to sustain love long enough to get married, 50% stay married. Out of those who stay together, possibly another 50% are not fulfilled. They stay together out of loyalty and obligation or the fear of starting over. So that means that when you get married, there's only a 25% chance you're going to be happy in that relationship. And what happens if you're one of the 75% and you feel that you have to end the marriage? Well, the consequences of divorce are quite severe. In this video, which I've just shown you, all the comments below were of men saying how divorce had ruined their life, how they'd spent years and years building up a certain amount of assets and capital and how that had gone. Not to mention the emotional turmoil of dealing with lawyers, going to courts and having to have a settlement with someone who you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with and that you dearly loved. So all of that is a possible reality if you decide to take that step to get married. So notice that Tate is not saying don't be in a loving relationship, and he's not saying definitely don't get married, but I think the message here is think long and hard about it before you make such a significant step in your life and decide to sign a legally binding agreement which can be enforced by the government. In the next clip, I'm going to show you Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan are going to be discussing the subject of depression.
I think
Let me ask you about what do you believe about depression? Do you believe depression is a real thing?
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
What I don't agree with you is that there's no such thing as clinical depression. There absolutely is.
Well,
it's a proven scientific medical reality.
Well, let me explain why. If someone comes to me and says, I'm clinically depressed or I feel very, very sad, I would say the first thing you need to do is stop accepting the identity of a clinically depressed person. Stop accepting you have no control over this. And what you need to do is stop identifying that way, and let's work together to try and fight against it.
But there isn't an eminent doctor in the world who would tell you there is no such thing as clinical depression.
The thousands of people who have emailed me saying, my doctor told me I was clinically depressed and it's a disease that I have got in my brain and I can't be fixed. And I started listening to you and I realized that that's not the case and I can fix my own life, and you're the only person who has ever helped me.
But a clinically depressed person has an absolutely proven medical condition that is beyond their control.
Not according to me and many others, my friend.
Well, Jim.
I believe feeling depressed is real. I do not believe it's a disease that you catch from the sky and you cannot affect. I believe that no matter what happens, I believe you have control of your own mind and you can fight against it. I believe if you change your circumstances in your life, you may feel different.
Now, this is a really interesting discussion, and despite his passion and being so adamant that he is correct, Piers Morgan is actually absolutely wrong. And Andrew Tate is far closer to the truth in this discussion. Is there such a thing as clinical depression? Well, yes, because a bunch of psychiatrists have sat round a table and said there is. That's why there's such a thing as clinical depression. There are no biological markers for clinical depression. There's no test in the way that you could be tested for cancer or you could have a scan that showed you had dementia. There's no such thing for depression. So to say that there isn't such a thing as clinical depression, Andrew Tate is kind of correct on one level. When it comes to the real scientific facts, and Piers is saying this is scientifically proven, well, it's not. There is no science behind depression. And he's also wrong by saying there's not an eminent doctor in the world that would agree with what Andrew Tate's saying. I've been researching my new book, The Rebel Code, which should be out relatively soon. And in this research, I came across quite a few different doctors who have said that clinical depression isn't real. One of them, Dr. Darshar Sanghavi, a clinical fellow at Harvard Medical University, had this to say: despite pseudoscientific terms like chemical imbalance, nobody really knows what causes mental illness. There's no blood test or brain scan for major depression. Another one, Dr. David Kaiser, written in the Psychiatric Times. He wrote, patients have been diagnosed with chemical imbalances. Despite that, no test exists to support such a claim. And there is no real conception of what a correct chemical balance would look like. So Andrew Tate was absolutely correct, and Piers Morgan is actually making a bit of an idiot out of himself, because there are plenty of doctors out there who challenge the idea that clinical depression is real. Now, notice that Andrew Tate saying depression is real, the experience of depression, absolutely. He's not arguing against that. I'm not arguing against that. People are suffering in record numbers in the world, and people are depressed. But this idea that it's something biological, that Piers keeps saying there's nothing you can do about it, and that's what the doctors say. There's nothing you can do about it, apart from, hey, take our pills. That's the only way to deal with this. Tate provides a much better antidote to depression. The whole idea of not believing in it, believing that you can take charge of your life, empowering yourself, taking actions that can basically breathe life back into you and help you find a meaning and a purpose for life, which will help you overcome this malaise and experience you're feeling. I feel that that's a much better approach to take to dealing with your mental health than what Piers is saying, because Piers is basically saying is basically taking all your power away. He's saying it's a medical condition, there's nothing you can do about it. Tate is arguing against that, and I think it's very valuable that you have somebody out there challenging the mainstream narrative on this issue. And in the final clip, you're going to see once again an interview with Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan, but this time they're discussing social media and government censorship.
Social media platforms are now the most important platforms on the planet. They control information and they influence real-world decisions, and they influence people's perception of reality. The last few years of COVID have been a perfect example of what happens when you censor one side of the argument and you only allow one point of view to be purported by the matrix in and of itself, and that's how you end up in tyrannical situations. I think you were just discussing that, Piers.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly valid point.
It was actually worse than that. You're right, Piers, but it was actually worse than interesting, because what happens is when you censor an entire side of the argument and only allowed one side of the argument to have a voice, you are changing reality in real time. You are shaping the world. The only reason that scam continued as long as it did, and the only reason people didn't get to see their own parents get buried, and the only reason people sat and missed cancer appointments is because they were censoring anybody who said anything contrary to the purported version of events that the mainstream media decided they want the entire world to swallow. It's beyond simply interesting, and it's beyond simply funny or coincidental.
But I do think it is completely justified for people to say we should be more cautious, I think, about accepting during fast-moving pandemics the word of scientists as being sacrosanct, because on a number of things, from the use of masks to the efficacy of vaccines in preventing transmission, they did massive U-turns.
I've read enough history books to know that the people who do the censoring are never the good guys. And they've been censoring a lot of arguments for a very long time in the name of good. They are weaponizing virtue, and it's always in the name of tyranny. Anybody who is out here trying to silence an entire side of an argument on any subject, whether it's COVID-19, immigration, anything else, they are the evil people who are out for absolute mind control of the populace.
And this is a great point to end on. Recently, Tate has been portrayed as the ultimate bad guy, a criminal who's polluting the minds of young men and filling their heads with dangerous ideas. But here in this clip, he points out that there's a far greater evil than he is, or anything that he might say. And he's absolutely true. The far greater evil are the people that seek to censor freedom of speech, that seek to censor any challenge to the mainstream narrative about what is occurring in life. And in this particular instance, he's obviously talking about the last couple of years with the lockdowns, with coronavirus. He refers to it as a scam. I don't know whether I agree that it's a scam. I think there was a virus and it was somewhat serious. I think the degree of seriousness was massively overblown, and the actions and results that followed were unnecessary and very detrimental to humanity and society, and that we're going to be paying the price and repercussions for taking those actions for many years to come. So for Andrew Tate to point that out, to say that the real evil are the people that seek to censor other people, is a very brave point of view to take, and he's very brave also to challenge the mainstream narrative on coronavirus. But it needs to be done, because if you don't, it can lead to tyranny. Do you really think that governments and social media companies have our best interests at heart? Do you really think they're looking out for our well-being when they're forcing us to do certain things? And if you can't check that power, if you can't stand up and speak against it, then we're just at the mercy of whatever they tell us the truth is. For this reason, Andrew Tate is much needed, a much needed antidote to many of the ideas that are floating around in society today. And on these three issues, marriage, depression, and censorship, he should be listened to. Well, that's everything for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.